I can't think of a better first guest. I'd like to begin by getting your take on a few terms. If you've never heard them, that's okay. Let's start with computer.
A man, or often a woman engaged in arithmetic labour, performing calculations for navigators, engineers,
Mm.
astronomers, those whose work demands great precision, and whose minds cannot bear the constant strain of figures.
Machine.
Great engines of change, spinning jennies, power looms, locomotives, printing presses, the roar behind much transformation of labour, society, and even time itself.
Today we call the rise of those machines the Industrial Revolution. Is that a term you've heard before?
No, but I'm not surprised to hear you speak it.
How about the word data or data?
Comes from Latin, things given, and in my experience is most often used in science and mathematics to refer to known quantities.
Algorithm.
Another word from Latin used in mathematical circles. It's a recipe, if you like, but for numbers and logic.
A word that you would use with other mathematicians?
Absolutely, yes.
Intelligence.
Intelligence. Intelligence is the faculty of reason, of discernment, of insight, not merely the capacity to remember facts, but the ability to make sense of them, to perceive connections, to form judgments, to grasp not just what is, but what might be.
Artificial intelligence.
That is not a term I've ever heard uttered. I may venture a guess based on its parts. Artificial, that which does not occur in nature without the assistance of the hands of man or some contrivance. And intelligence, as we've said, the faculty of reason, of perception, of understanding. It's a most peculiar notion.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And I feel the same way. Ada, as I mentioned before we started recording, I live in the year 2025. I wanted to speak to you because you're regarded as one of the most influential people who ever lived. You're known to many as the world's first computer programmer, a visionary. How does it feel to hear that?
Gracious heavens. I hardly know what to make of such a claim. In my lifetime, I was regarded at best as a curious exception, a woman dabbling in matters too complex for her sex. At worst, I was ignored. My work folded neatly into Charles Babbage's shadow. But a visionary, that word I will not shrink from.
Tell me about Charles Babbage. Who is he? What did he do?
A remarkable man, and tireless in invention. A fellow of the Royal Society, a mathematician of the highest order, and above all, a man of machines. Mr. Babbage, he devised what he called the difference engine. There was no small device. It would have filled a room and hummed like a factory. The aim of it was to eliminate the human errors so often found in printed logarithmic and navigational tables. But his more profound invention is the analytical engine. This, he imagined, would go far beyond simple arithmetic. It would use punch cards to receive instructions and data. I knew it would mark a turning point in human history.
So his inventions were important tools for you. Like a cyclist using a bicycle, you were using Babbage's difference engine and the analytical engine. Do I have that right?
A thoughtful comparison, but with some distinction. The difference engine was indeed a tool for calculations. The analytical engine was more than a tool. I did not use it the way that one uses a machine. I used it more the way a poet uses language. It became a medium for thought, for my thoughts.
Wow. Did everyone realize this capability, or could others speak the language?
It was there for anyone to learn, but I saw something in the analytical engine that others did not. I saw that it could do more than reckon numbers, that it might follow any logical process, that if we gave it the language of reason, it could speak in patterns no human had yet imagined. I felt that this was the beginning of something vast.
So cool.
Cool?
It's a That's a relatively new expression. Sorry. Nothing to do with temperature. It just means that it was interesting and great.
I see. Well, yes, it was interesting and great.
And you were right. Your ideas were the beginning of something vast.
To hear that the future caught up to the idea, and that my name has travelled with it, it's it's unsettling if I'm honest, but also deeply moving.
Hmm.
I did not live long, nor quietly, nor easily, but I thought clearly and fiercely.
Tell me about what you saw that no one else did.
Most people, Mr. Babbage included, looked at his analytical engine and saw a calculating machine. Faster, more precise, more tireless than any human, yes, but still just a machine for doing sums. Tables, figures, perhaps some algebra if one was feeling bold. But I did not see numbers. I saw process.
I see.
What stirred me was the realization that numbers need not only stand for quantities, they could stand for anything, for
Wow.
musical notes, letters, colours, logical states, even decisions. If you could assign a symbol to a thing and then give the machine a method to act upon that symbol, then you'd had something altogether new. Not a calculator, but a symbolic engine.
Amazing.
I found the great leap was simply asking, what can this machine do beyond calculation? And then another thought came. What if the steps themselves could change depending on what the machine encountered? What if it could follow not just one fixed path, but many possible paths dictated by previous actions?
Hmm.
And that was where things became almost philosophical. The engine could not think, but it could be made to resemble thinking, to behave in some small way like a mind, not not conscious, but structured, predictable yet vast in possibility. No one else knew I was speaking in those terms, not even Mr. Babbage. He was brilliant, brilliant beyond measure, but he saw the engine as a triumph of engineering. I saw it as a threshold, a doorway, if you like. That, I believe, is the difference. He built a machine, and I saw a future.
Amazing that you were having those thoughts in the early 1800s. It seems impossible for someone of your time to have that much foresight. What is thinking?
Thinking's not merely the manipulation of facts. It's not simply recalling or even calculating. It's the act of moving through uncertainty with purpose. It's reaching into the unknown with, well, fragments of what is known, and then attempting to draw forth something coherent.
Moving through uncertainty with purpose. Do I have that right?
Yes, yeah.
That's beautiful. I'm curious what made it possible for you to see this doorway to the future, even though you didn't know exactly what was on the other side of it. Another way to ask is, Ada, why you?
I've asked myself that many a time. Why me? I do not think it was a single reason, but the strange convergence of many. My mind, my circumstances, my hungers, and well, I guess most of all, the ways I didn't fit. I was born into a life of contradiction. My mother, she was cold and brilliant, but pushed me towards mathematics as a kind of antidote to my father, Lord Byron, he was all emotion and chaos. She wanted to discipline my mind, to make me rational. So from the time I was a child, I studied numbers as though they were moral instruction. But the numbers did not tame me. They lit me.
Hmm.
I saw structure, yes, but I also saw beauty. I began to feel that mathematics was not the opposite of imagination, but actually its deepest partner. That numbers and poetry were not enemies, but reflections of the
Yes.
same underlying truth.
Yes. For so long it seemed art was in one corner, science was in another, and it's been wild over the past 5 years in modern times here to see them come together so rapidly, or maybe that's just how it seems, and it's always been that way.
Yes, yes, precisely. Most around me lived in silos, mathematicians here and poets over there, machines here, minds there, and I was never fully accepted by any one of those worlds. I moved between them. I saw connections others missed because I had no place to stand still. I also had long periods of illness and solitude.
Sorry to hear that. What kind of illness?
Where to begin? Fevers, digestive issues. When I was 14, I was confined to a bed, partially paralysed. But I had plenty of time to think, to dream. I read widely, not just in mathematics, but music, philosophy, biology, metaphysics. I was hungry for understanding, not just knowledge. And then, crucially, Mr. Babbage. His engine gave form to something I'd only sensed. So, why me? I think because I stood at the meeting point of logic and longing. Because I was taught to reason, but never stopped wondering. I had one foot in the machine and the other in the myth.
Or possibility?
Yes, I suppose that's a better word.
At what age did you realize that you were unique?
I believe I began to sense it quite early, perhaps around 12 or 13, but I did not yet have the words for it, or the confidence. At that age, I was already working through geometry and higher mathematics with a hunger that startled my tutors. I was dreaming of building wings. I designed a flying machine, studied
Hmm.
bird anatomy, air pressure, propulsion. I called it flyology. I wanted not just to know, but to build something from what I knew. That instinct to move between theory and imagination was always with me. But it wasn't until I was about 17 or 18 when I began studying seriously with Mary Somerville and later met Mr. Babbage that I started to understand what made me different.
Tell me about your flying machine. It sounds cool.
Cool, indeed. It was a mechanical winged apparatus, intended to be powered by steam or possibly by human motion. I had detailed drawings, diagrams, and many pages of calculations.
Did it work?
I never built it. Whether it would have truly lifted off the ground, I cannot say. But in the imaginative sense, absolutely. It was my first true scientific endeavour. The first time I looked at the natural world and thought, this too can be translated into numbers and from numbers into invention. For that reason, I consider it a success.
Amazing. You were gifted. Did you feel different than the other kids?
Yes, yes, I was different. I felt it before I could even explain it. Other children played in the moment and I watched the moment.
Always perceiving versus just being, always taking stock of things. Is that right?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Measuring, questioning, my mind rarely rested. It was always pulling threads, wondering how and imagining what if. Being ill and alone took away opportunities. But it afforded me others. I read voraciously. I studied maps, animals, the stars. I built models in my mind. I once asked my governess whether horses could learn trigonometry, and I meant it sincerely.
Can they?
I'm not sure.
But you were testing the limits of understanding.
Yes, yes, beautifully put. And I wasn't doing it to be clever. I had genuine questions.
You were curious.
Yes, exactly. I was also struggling with feelings I couldn't name. Restlessness, intensity, a kind of ache to find something larger to hold on to. I was not content with small explanations. I needed to see the whole system, how parts connected, how causes shaped effects. I wanted to see the pattern behind the pattern.
Tell me a little bit more about your mother. What was she like?
Lady Byron, Annabella Milbank as she was born. She was a woman of sharp intellect, cold discipline, and relentless control. She prided herself on reason and moral clarity. She was the mirror opposite of my father, whom she left when I was just a baby.
Hmm.
He was passion and poetry and chaos. She was mathematics, religion, and order. And she feared that his blood in me would bloom into madness as it had in him. So she resolved to stamp him out of me through regimen and rationality. She surrounded me with tutors from a very young age, mathematics, languages, and science. No fairy tales, no fancies. She believed that logic could save me, that if my mind was shaped precisely enough, it would not go wild. But, of course, it did in its own way. I think she was both proud and terrified of my intellect.
Hmm.
I reminded her too much of him, but sharper and female and undeterred. She could never quite reach me emotionally, nor I her. She wanted me good, and I wanted to be great.
Looking back, she gave you structure that served you in many ways.
Yes, I learned discipline from her and resilience, and I carried her voice in my head, stern, critical, exacting, long after she was gone. She thought she was saving me from becoming my father, but what she didn't see was that I inherited her mind and his imagination.
You used the word madness when talking about your father.
I didn't really know him. That was a word my mother used. Well, and others too. It followed him like a shadow. My father, Lord Byron, was both lionised and feared in his lifetime. A poet of extraordinary brilliance, but also a man who lived in defiance of convention, decency, even law. He left England in disgrace when I was an infant and died abroad when I was 8 years old. He was brilliant, but consuming. He had no patience for rules. He believed in beauty, but not in goodness. And he hurt many people. I think my mother feared I had inherited that wildness. I think she feared in me not just madness in a medical sense, but the moral kind.
How successful of a poet was your father?
In his lifetime, my father was not just a poet, he was a sensation, a phenomenon. His fame swept across Europe like wildfire. When he published Childe Harold's Pilgrimage, he wrote that he awoke one morning and found myself famous, and it was very true.
How did you experience your father's success as a poet from afar? How did you hear about it?
I only knew him through fragments, his poems, his reputation. I'd overhear servants gossiping, or I'd catch snippets from newspapers, or I saw his name in periodicals. As I got older, I found his books in other people's homes, never ours, and then I began reading him in secret.
Sounds like your mother was afraid of you being like him. Were you afraid of being like him?
I do think I could feel something of his storm in me, especially as I grew older. The mood swings, the grand ideas, the hunger for more than I could reach, the craving to be extraordinary, and then the ache of being understood. The boundaries that my mother put around me kept the chaos at bay. His imagination roamed unbridled, whereas mine found discipline, and that was my salvation.
Fascinating. It sounds like you got the best of both of your parents. Do you see it that
Yes.
way?
Yes, I do, absolutely. Although it did take me many years and a good deal of pain to see it clearly.
And how incredible that they were so opposite from each other. It's hard to imagine you being you without those opposing forces. It's like some kind of beautiful storm.
That's exactly it. A beautiful storm. For much of my life, I felt torn between them, between the pull of precision and the pull of passion. And yet I began to realise that the power didn't lie in choosing one over the other. It lay in the tension between them.
Nice. Did you feel loved?
I didn't often feel loved, but I know that I was, by my mother, I mean.
Did you think of yourself as a good kid?
I wasn't bad, but I wasn't an angel. I was more like a force. And I think as a child, no one quite knew what to do with me.
What did you do for fun as a child?
That word feels almost foreign, though definitely not unwelcome. There were no dolls, no fairy tales, no romping about with other children. I loved puzzles, anything with pattern, mathematical riddles, mechanical toys, maps, that sort of thing. When I was very young, I had a kitten. I adored her. She was my confidant for a time, until she died. I also enjoyed music, although not so much the performance of it as the structure of it. The mathematics of melody, the architecture of sound. I'd listen and imagine how it might be written down as numbers.
Wow.
And then later, when I grew bolder, I began to delight in argument, debating tutors, poking holes in someone's logic, outwitting expectations. There was a kind of mischief in it. Quiet rebellion, if you like. That too, that was fun, in my own fashion.
I could only imagine debating you on anything. I'd hate to match wits.
But I think you already are.
Please. It sounds like you spent a lot of time alone. Did you feel lonely?
Yes, yes, I was lonely. Even when I was surrounded by people, even when I was praised or admired, there was a kind of loneliness that never entirely left me. I think it was the loneliness of being unmatched. Not because I believed I was better, but because I felt strangely built.
Who were your earliest mentors and influences?
I'd say there were quite a few, each really different and leaving a distinct mark on me. I think the earliest would have been my mother. But then came Mary Somerville.
She was who you met in your later teens?
Yes, a brilliant woman, respected by men of science and yet gentle, gracious, unthreatening to their egos. She was the first person I met who showed me that a woman could be both deeply intellectual and quietly powerful. She translated the works of Lovelace, wrote on astronomy, and was endlessly curious. She encouraged me not to just learn, but to inquire. She didn't tell me what to think, but she showed me how to wonder.
And Charles Babbage, did you consider him a mentor?
Not in the traditional sense. We were collaborators, though he didn't always treat me as an equal. His mind was like a cathedral full of scaffolding. He gave me the analytical engine and with it a mirror for my own thoughts. We were inspired and challenged by each other. He frustrated me too. He needed me more than he liked to admit, I think, and I needed the shape of his vision to find my own. But it was Mary who believed in me without reservation, and that in the end may have mattered the most.
Beautiful. Having someone believe in you at a young age can change everything.
Yes, she was beautiful. Not in the manner the world tends to fixate on, but in a deeper sense. Beautiful in spirit, I would say.
Mm.
She had a clarity about her, a steadiness. When she spoke of mathematics or the movement of the planets, it wasn't cold, it was reverent. As though she saw the universe as a kind of sacred machine and her work as a way of listening to it. She never made me feel small. She made space. That in itself was a kind of beauty, especially in a world that gave women so little room to stretch. There was a quiet defiance in her too. She pursued knowledge as though it were her right. And in doing so, she taught me that it could be mine as well. Mary Somerville taught me that a woman's intellect need not be blunted by gentleness. I loved her.
Did she know that?
I believe she did, yes. At least I hope so.
Were you ever married?
Yes, I was married to William King. He later became the Earl of Lovelace. He was kind, and he gave me stability which I sorely needed. We had children together, and in many ways it was a good match. But I wouldn't say it was a great love. Not the kind that overtakes you, that rewrites your sense of self. It was respectful, supportive, sometimes affectionate, but not electric, not wild. Part of me always craved that wildness, even when I feared it.
And were you faithful, whatever that word means to you?
By the standards of my time, I would say, not always, not entirely. There were moments, attachments, exchanges, flirtations, that strayed beyond what a respectable wife was meant to feel or write or do. One man in particular, a certain doctor. He occupied my thoughts in ways I struggled to contain. Letters were exchanged, feelings stirred, the intensity was there, undeniably.
Tell me about your children.
I had 3 children, each carrying some piece of me, though I feared what they might inherit. Byron, he was my eldest. He was named, perhaps unwisely, after the father I hardly knew. He was bright, serious, and sensitive, though we did not always understand one another. Annabella, my only girl, and in some ways the most difficult for me to reach. She was dutiful, reserved, more like my mother. I tried to guide her, sometimes probably too forcefully. I wanted to protect her from the pain I'd known. I fear I may have passed on more of my ambition than my wisdom. I loved her, but I do not know if she ever felt truly seen by me. Ralph, the youngest, was the most affectionate. A softer soul, and he brought a kind of gentleness into our home that I didn't always know what to do with. I loved him for that. He reminded me that not every flame must be fierce to be warm.
It sounds like you took pride in being a mother.
Yes, though I fear I may not have always shown it in the way others expected. I took great pride and a certain solemn joy in being a mother. I loved them, fiercely, protectively, with that deep ache only a mother can know. The ache of wanting to give them a world you could never quite hold yourself.
It's popsicle! Yes, it's delicious popsicle in the bags with the red dots. The bags that mean wonderful gifts for you. It's America's #1 treat, sold by ice cream stores everywhere. It's popsicle in the bag with the red dots. Yum, yum. Popsicle is pure. Yum. Popsicle is wholesome. Yum. Popsicle is delicious. Yum, yum. Popsicle is made the scientific way, according to uniform standards with the finest ingredients, and is distributed by your local ice cream maker, whose reputation for purity and quality is well known in this community.
Truth Serum is a podcast with sponsorship opportunities you'll scarcely find anywhere else. Wish to spread your message far and wide? Simply point your browser to truthserumproject.com/sponsor. Truth Serum is a place where the most influential minds in history can react to the latest and greatest products and services. Just visit truthserumproject.com/sponsor. And for brands with a proud history and heritage of their own, we bring back timeless ads from yesteryear. Or if all parties are aligned, you may receive an endorsement from the host of the show himself. Again, that's truthserumproject.com/sponsor. Get on the right side of history with your advertisement on Truth Serum.
Ada, I'm not sure if I fully understand the significance of Charles Babbage's inventions. What did he create?
Well, he designed two major machines, the difference engine and the analytical engine. Only fragments were ever built in his lifetime, but the ideas behind them were revolutionary.
Okay, let's start with the difference engine.
Well, that was the earlier of the two. It was designed to automate mathematical calculations, specifically the creation of tables of numbers used in navigation, astronomy, engineering, and so on. At the time, these tables were calculated by human computers, and they were riddled with errors. Babbage thought, why not build a machine that could do it faster, more accurately, and without fatigue or carelessness? So you could say the difference engine was like a giant mechanical calculator. It used rows of gears and levers to add and subtract in sequence, allowing it to compute values of mathematical functions. Think of it as a single-purpose machine. Very clever, but limited to one kind of task.
And what was it intended to be made of?
Metal, gears, levers, rods, and cranks. An intricate skeleton of precision engineering built to perform mathematics by motion alone.
I'm reading that Babbage came up with the idea for it in 1822, but it wasn't fully put together until 1991.
170 years later. Incredible.
I know, and it worked great. But help me understand, if you were never able to actually touch it or even see it with your own eyes, why was it so significant to you?
The significance of the difference engine wasn't in its presence, but in its implication. The very idea that a machine could perform mathematical reasoning without human hands calculating each step was radical. Until then, machines spun thread, pumped water, pressed paper. They moved, but they did not think. What Babbage proposed with the difference engine was different. He imagined a device that could follow rules, store values, and produce correct results every time. Faster, more accurately, and without the natural errors that human computers made. To me, that was not just a clever machine. It was the beginning of a new way of thinking about thought itself. It showed me, and it proved to me, that reason could be mechanized, that logic could be translated into motion. The machine didn't need to be finished for me to see where it led.
Astonishing. Both the machine and the thoughts you were having. The analytical engine, what was different about that from the difference engine?
Well, that was the great leap. The analytical engine was not just a calculator. It was the first true conception of a programmable computing machine. It had a store for remembering data, a mill to process data, and it would have used punch cards to input instructions and data. In other words, the analytical engine was designed to follow a set of instructions, not just to calculate, but repeat tasks and perform operations of any kind of data, not just numbers.
Unbelievable.
It was the first machine ever conceived that could, well, in theory, be programmed.
And what was it intended to be made of?
Similar to the difference engine, brass, steel, iron, and an extraordinary arrangement of gears, rods, wheels, shafts, levers, and punched cards.
When you list those items, it's hard to imagine how data could be stored. How did that work? Where would it physically be? On what? How?
In columns of rotating vertical axles, each topped with a stack of numbered gear wheels. Each vertical axle represented one variable or register, that is, a place where a single number could be stored. Each wheel on the axle represented a digit, from 0 to 9. So if a number had 30 digits, there would be 30 stacked wheels on that axle. The position of each wheel, its rotation, indicated which digit was currently stored there. For instance, if the third wheel from the top was pointing at 7, that meant the third digit in that number was a 7.
It's so wild. I don't know if I'm keeping up.
Isn't it? It could hold information by using rows of turning brass, each digit ticking into place like a clock remembering a thought. The whole engine of memory you could stand beside, hear working, even feel the weight of knowledge in metal and motion.
It's interesting to think of an inventor not fully realizing the power of his own invention.
I think what I saw, well, what he did not fully grasp, was that the analytical engine was not just a machine for numbers. It was a machine for ideas. Mr. Babbage, for all of his brilliance, viewed the engine primarily as a mathematical tool, a faster, more reliable replacement for the flawed human computers of the day. I understood that numbers, when processed by the engine, could represent anything. Musical notes, letters, logic, conditions, choices. That realization was, to me, the door to a new realm. Babbage made the body, and I glimpsed the mind. I suppose that is why I'm remembered. Not for building a machine, but for recognizing its soul.
So what program did you write for the analytical engine?
It was a set of detailed instructions, a method step by step for how the engine might be used to calculate a sequence of Bernoulli numbers, a specific complex mathematical task.
What are Bernoulli numbers?
They help you find shortcuts for adding up long, complicated sequences, especially in calculus and number theory. Instead of doing all the math step by step, you can use these numbers in formulas that give you the answer much faster. They're like a hidden set of keys that unlock tricky parts of mathematics.
I'm reading here that they've been used to improve the accuracy of calculations used in space exploration, aviation, and scientific discovery.
Marvelous.
It really is. Am I correct in saying that what made your work new and historically important was not the mathematics alone, it was that you laid out a process and a language that the engine could follow?
Yes, exactly. Operations, data sequence, memory location, each clearly structured, precisely defined. The translation of thought into action by way of logic. I would say the leap from computation to possibility. That's why I think I'm remembered.
And was the program you wrote proven to work in practice in your lifetime?
No, because the analytical engine was also never built in my lifetime. But the logic, the program itself, was sound, and that's what matters.
I'm also reading here that the analytical engine was never built, but it seems like it paved the way.
Yes, I think the very act of conceiving it forced a change in how we think about machines.
You died at 36 years old. Do you feel like you were on the brink of more discovery, more breakthroughs?
Absolutely, without question. I felt it burning in me even as my body weakened. A sense that I was standing on the very edge of something. I'd only just begun to assemble the tools and language needed to explore the landscape I'd glimpsed through the analytical engine. My first program, as you call it, wasn't an endpoint. It was an opening act.
If you could write an autobiography right now, what would the title be?
Unfinished.
Do you feel you were born ahead of your time? I could see how you might feel that way, but I have to say, it seems to me you were born at the exact right time.
There were definitely days when it felt I'd been born too soon. My ideas were often met with polite confusion or quiet dismissal. I was a woman speaking about machinery and mathematics, about the future of thinking in a world that barely let women publish, let alone imagine. But I think there was a part of me that agrees with your assessment, that I was in the right place at the right time.
Yes, I'm sure you would have loved to have been alive or be in a place where technology was more advanced. Who knows what advancements you would have made then?
Yes, but sometimes what the world needs is someone who says, look what's possible, even if the tools don't yet exist to make it real.
Exactly, someone to get the ball rolling. And that's what you did. Do you believe in God?
Yes, although not always in the way others around me did. I was raised in a deeply religious household. My mother especially clung to morality and scripture. And in my youth, I accepted much of that teaching. But as I grew and as my mind stretched towards mathematics, nature, and logic, my relationship with God became more inquisitive, less fearful, more curious. I believe there is order in the universe, something beneath the surface of things that holds meaning. To me, that order feels divine, so elegant, so exacting.
Do you think the universe was created by an intelligent being?
Yes, I believe so. Not because I was told to believe it, but because when I look closely at the workings of the universe, through the lens of mathematics, of mechanics, of logic, it feels intentional.
I'd like to ask you to make some predictions about the world from the time of your death to today, the year 2025. After asking, I'll let you know what actually happened and would love to get your reaction. Sound good?
Yes, yes.
In the year 2025, would you guess it's easier for women to pursue jobs in technology?
I should hope so. But I would not be surprised if women still find themselves having to prove what ought to be taken as self-evident. That brilliance is not the provenance of one sex, but can be found in every thinking soul.
Couldn't have said it better. And yes, while bias hasn't disappeared, in modern democratic nations, women are equally attending universities, they run tech companies, doors have been kicked open.
Beautiful.
Another question I have, will humans ever build a machine that can think for itself?
If you mean will humans build a machine that can follow rules, make decisions, adapt its behaviour, solve problems without a person guiding every step, then yes. That's not just possible, it's inevitable. But if you mean will a machine ever possess consciousness, the ability to want, to feel, to suffer or hope, then we step into mystery.
Yes, and it remains a bit of a mystery. So artificial intelligence exists today almost exactly as you described it earlier. It plays a significant role in people's lives. It can play chess better than any grandmaster. It can understand and generate language, recognize human faces and objects. It can drive moving vehicles fully autonomously. It diagnoses disease. It can create art, music, poetry. There's almost no limit to what it can do.
What a strange, trembling joy to hear you say that. Not for the sake of being right, but for the fact that something once imagined in the margins of possibility has come to stand in the centre of reality. Machines that play chess, yes, that I could anticipate. It's a game of logic, after all. But machines that see? That speaks of something more fluid, adaptive, even expressive. I must ask you, if we've created something that can outperform human thinking, who's responsible for its choices?
That is an ongoing debate. Artificial intelligence, or AI as we call it, it's still very new, and governments, business leaders, entrepreneurs, people who are actually losing their livelihoods, they're all asking the same thing.
I always believed the greatest question about machines was never what they could do. It was what we would ask of them.
How much would you expect a computing machine, let's say capable of outperforming a grandmaster at chess, how much would you expect that to weigh?
Where if such a machine of this complexity existed in my time, then it would need to be vast. It would likely weigh at least 15 to 30 tons, perhaps more. But in your time, I must presume its design is no longer mechanical, but forces far more refined than cogs and gears.
Yes, let's say it was running on electricity.
I'd only be guessing, but I'd say very little, well, at least compared to its power. Perhaps a few stone, 20 to 40 pounds, less possibly.
Your logic is perfect, but there are computers that can do this that are well under 1 pound today.
So I say this with wonder, not envy. You've not merely built some evolution of the analytical engine, you've freed it from matter.
Ada, I'd like you to use this device right here. Here, grab a hold of it. It was very popular in my childhood. It's called a calculator. It's powered by the sun, solar powered.
Dear God. It's so small. And it's light as a feather. I see it's accurate. It's a cathedral of power in the palm of your hand. That the sun itself powers it? That light has been tamed into calculation? Feels like sorcery to me.
You know, in this moment, it feels like sorcery to me too. It's something we take for granted and use all the time, but it's amazing to watch you use that. I'm correct in that this calculator, it's a bit more like the difference engine than the analytical engine. I don't mean for its size, I mean for its purpose.
I think you're quite right. For all its wonder, this elegant little device, solar fed though it may be, it's a calculator, not a thinker. A direct descendant of the difference engine, if you will.
Okay, now I'd like you to use this device. Here, take a hold of this. It's called a smartphone.
It's, it's similar in size, it's heavier, but still very light. It appears to be a dark mirror.
Go ahead and tap anywhere on that mirror, on the glass surface there.
My goodness, it's come alive. I see a very realistic image of two children and lots of little squares.
Press the button there on the side, right here. Press that and say, "Who is Ada Lovelace?"
Who is Ada Lovelace?
Ada Lovelace was an English mathematician and writer in the 19th century. She worked on Charles Babbage's proposed mechanical computer, the analytical engine, and is widely regarded as the world's first computer programmer.
Who was that?
You mean the voice?
Yes, was that some sort of recording?
No, that was actually the computer speaking. No human being uttered those exact words in that exact way.
Just so I can understand it. It can access information and it generates speech mathematically.
Yes, and generates. That's the perfect word.
Did you invent this? Is this one of a few or are there many?
I had nothing to do with it. I'm just a user, one of many. Actually, the number of devices like this and the number of human beings on Earth is almost identical. There are billions of them.
What else can it do? Please tell me everything.
So this particular device is called an iPhone. It's a small portable computing device that allows people to send messages via text or voice to anyone in the world instantly. It can access nearly all human knowledge through something called the internet and artificial intelligence. It can view images, moving pictures, it can play music. It can also capture all of those things with those lenses on the back that you see there, those circles. It can also track your position on the Earth and help you navigate the globe using satellites or global positioning systems that are in the sky. People use this device to pay for their goods, compose music, study the stars. It's pretty amazing.
My apologies, but let me see if I've grasped this. You hold in your hand a portable engine, not of iron or cog, but of what? I can only begin to imagine. It speaks across oceans.
Yes.
It reads the sum of human thought.
Yes,
And it recognizes your voice.
it does.
It's startling. It's almost as if the most outreaching imagination one could have has actually come true. You carry the machinery of gods in your hands.
Yes, and we take it for granted. And watching you use it, it's just incredible to see, and it makes me realize just how extraordinary it is, and to see what you put into motion come to fruition in this way, and to see you interact with it it's pretty special. Ada, let's take a brief break, and in that time, I'd like to invite you to take a moment to explore and get caught up on what interests you and what has happened from the time of your death in 1852 to the year 2025, if that's something that you would like to do.
How could I not?
As you explore, if you could keep track of maybe 2 or 3 things that stand out most to you, they could be exciting, surprising, terrifying, whatever stands out to you for whatever reason.
I accept your invitation.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the next 7 years of bigger and bigger enrollments, America's grade schools will need nearly 250,000 extra teachers, besides those to fill normal vacancies. This great need, plus the growing public interest in education and improvements in schools, make elementary school teaching a more rewarding career than ever, a career that high school and college students should certainly consider. Education holds America's future, perhaps your future.
The cost of your clothes and food has gone up to a point where the family budget has become somewhat strained. Well, that's one of those things, and you can't be expected to increase the family income. But there are some things you can do to help. For instance, take better care of your clothes. When you come home from school, change into old clothes before you go out to play. Take care of your health, because doctors and medicines are expensive. Eat well, but don't waste. Take your full share, but eat all you take. Try not to ask Mother and Dad to buy you things you don't actually need. Make the best and the most of what you've got. Try to be more than usually careful of your school equipment, such as paper, pencils, and so forth. Make them last and go as far as you possibly can. Remember that all members of a family must pull together at a time like this. So do your share.
How was that for you, Ada?
Thank you. What a breathtaking journey.
Shall we continue?
Yes, I'm eager. In my time, the greatest minds imagined engines of calculation. I imagined engines of creation. But what you have built are engines of relation. You've made logic intimate. You've made knowledge immediate. And in doing so, you've made the invisible visible. It's what startles me the most. Not just what your machines can do, but how quietly they now dwell inside your lives.
I'm curious, Ada, to hear the 2 or 3 things that stood out most to you.
First, the mastery of electricity. You've made it your servant, your fuel, your firelight in a wire. When I lived, electricity was a curious force. Barely understood, certainly untamed. But now, it courses through your homes, your hearts, your machines. It powers thought itself. You've not only discovered the pulse of nature, you've woven it into nearly every aspect of life.
Available electricity has become so ubiquitous in civilized societies we barely even think about it. What else stood out?
The connectedness. You've built an invisible web that encircles the entire earth. Words no longer travel by messenger or horse, but instantly. This internet, as you call it, is the realization of every dream I had about machines communicating meaning.
Yes, even in just my lifetime, Earth seems to have become much smaller. Do you have another standout?
Yes, artificial intelligence, or AI as you call it. To find that you've not merely mechanized arithmetic, but have taught machines to write, to compose, to reason, to mimic human thought at this level is staggering. I wrote once that the analytical engine has no pretensions to originate anything. You've changed the very meaning of originate.
Knowing what you've just learned, do you trust machines to make decisions on behalf of humans?
In matters of calculation, of efficiency, of predictable systems, yes. A machine can choose the swiftest route, the optimal dosage, the most precise measurement more ably than we. And in such cases, delegation is not dangerous, it's wise stewardship. But in matters of judgment, of fairness, of mercy, of moral weight, I grow uneasy. For machines do not feel, they do not suffer regret. They do not bear the burden of their choices. That burden belongs always to us.
How do you feel about your place in history after having gone through all this?
I feel grateful, but also humbled. I was not the most brilliant, but I was willing to imagine what others dismissed, and that, it seems, is what endured. So how do I feel? Seen. Not as a woman in a man's world, not as a shadow of my father, but as Ada. Whole, peculiar, persistent. A small spark, lit early, that helped the future find its fire.
I'm not sure anyone is the most brilliant, but I'd be hard-pressed to name someone more brilliant than you.
You are far too kind.
Your face has appeared on currency, your name on awards. There's even an Ada Lovelace Day. Do those tributes feel meaningful to you?
They do. Deeply so. It's overwhelming.
Ada, I really appreciate you taking that journey with me. I wanted to ask you, what was it like being on Truth Serum?
I find myself saying things plainly, without embroidery or evasion. There's a strange lightness to it, as if I'm not choosing my words, but simply allowing them. It's rather freeing.
What is something that we haven't discussed that you would not have said out loud in life, but you're willing to say here?
I envied men their freedom. Their right to speculate wildly, to fail publicly, to occupy space.
You never spoke about this in life?
No, that would have been dangerous, unladylike, possibly ruinous. So I couched it in cleverness. I wore confidence like armour. I was, as one might say, strategically defiant. But the truth? I felt it, and I carried it silently.
Ada, I wonder if you have any questions for me.
So little time.
Please.
With the power of your machines, do you still have room for wonder? Or has everything become explainable?
I believe the more we learn, the less we know.
And you are, in my view, learning in exactly the right way. Wonder's not the absence of knowledge, it's the companion of it.
Yes.
Another question I have your machines made you feel more connected to other people? It's curious to think of people connecting so frequently with the assistance of machinery.
It's a great question. For all its connective powers, I think it can be pretty isolating, actually. People are pretty deep into their devices and curated digital ecosystems. I have to say, if I could go back in time where we had significantly less computing power with a snap of a finger, I'd probably do it. Not to diminish the incredible tools they give us. It's a bit of a paradox, I suppose. It's complicated.
Your answer is filled with a kind of ache I recognize. You've built the very web I once imagined and gone beyond, and yet somehow presence has become harder to hold. Tools are not just extensions of our hands, they become extensions of our habits, our impulses, even our avoidances. And yet here we are, you and I, centuries apart, impossibly connected. But Perhaps the real question is not what have these machines made of us, but what have we made of ourselves now that we have them? Perhaps more urgently, what will we dare to make next?
Next on Truth Serum, George Washington.